Well, you thought you weren't going to get it, but congratulations. You've got it. Sounds like anyone you know. Definitely a familiar tale. Okay, so I'm a little bit late today. About an hour and a half later than I expected, but we're going to press on very quickly. It's the Friday edition of Club Corbie. On yesterday's stream, we were lettering this page right here. And with that out of the way, we're going to get right into it. We're going to work on the next page, which is number 22. And I have the script for this open in another window. We're just going to get right into it. Right off the bat, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down Corinne's dialogue on this page because it's a little bit too much of it. And I think her first bubble where the first speech bubble where she says, "Oh, that seems kind of out there, Sadie. We don't really need it." For some reason, we need to increase the size of the speech bubbles on this page. I'm not sure why, but I thought that the canvas would be the same size across both pages. That's too much. That's too little. I think that's about right. Fix justification. Need to fix the line spacing. And one of the reasons that I'm gonna make sure that Kevin has a bit less dialogue on this panel is because Sadie's gonna have a fair amount of dialogue. So we'll do this the same way we did yesterday. We'll just lay out the bubbles and lay out the text, and then we'll put the text as speech bubbles afterwards. Second stream this week, by the way, which is not good. I want to do much better next week. See if we can do at least 3 streams next week. And if we do really well, we might do 4 or 5. Okay, I think. See, that's going to be a very odd speech bubble because it's going to be the bottom line is going to be bigger than the upper 2, so it'll work better like that. So that we're making the most of the space in the bubble just because of the shape of it. the no is going to fit right into the tippy top bit, and the deal will do much the same on the lower part, and then the two lines in the middle are going to fill out the wider part of the bubble where it's expands out. Anyway, okay, this is the going to be the bubble that's going to do me in, I think, because when I wrote this dialogue, I wanted it to seem like Sadie was really breathless and just kept talking, but making this work as an actual bubble and not we don't have to worry too much about the positioning there. We just need to get a general idea about where the speech bubbles are going to go. Again, deliberately leaving a bit of a safe area up here. In fact, we could put it in the middle there if we wanted to, but because you're reading left to right, it's ideally we would stick it here. Oh, and Sadie has another bit of she's continuing to ramble, so there's another 2 speech bubbles on here. I've really got my work cut out for me here. I don't want to edit the dialogue too much because it's supposed to be she has this kind of run-on dialogue and she's just rambling. It's going to be a very wide bubble. I think we need to just rearrange this a bit. I was about to start tinkering with the dialogue there, but we'll leave that be just now. Okay, that's the last bubble. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to place that because that last one's a thought bubble rather than a speech one. Obviously, Kevin didn't just blurt out, "Oh yeah, I forgot that. I wrecked the place." Kind of blowing her secret identity there if she says that. So, right, we're going to go back up to the top and start to lay down the actual speech bubbles within this text. Oops. Okay, all pretty straightforward so far. I like to avoid creating a sort of tangent with these bubbles. What I mean by that is, I talk about tangents a lot, but in this particular context, what I mean is having this tail bubble just sort of hit the line of the door frame there. I would rather avoid that, so I'll make the tail a bit wider and a bit more prominent. But also, by which I mean it needs to extend out a bit more. And again, as we talked about yesterday, ideally it's going to point up towards Sadie's mouth. Okay, this one, I'll move it down here a bit just now, really. Try and get the correct shape for this mouthful of a bit of speech. That's actually almost dead on, maybe a bit too low. And then we can merge these two together. Simple as that. Not the most it's not the most aesthetically pleasing panel, especially for an opening panel, because I feel like in an ideal world we use a bit more of the real estate up here and then not block off as much of the art, but I don't know, I kind of knew that was going to happen. Like, the most important thing is that, we can see Corinne is concerned, obviously, and we can see Sadie, and Sadie's got her sort of fists up, and we can sort of see her actions, but it's a bit frustrating, to be honest with you. Okay, let's try something else. It's as I said, just such a large chunk of dialogue there, which is kind of necessary because the plot sort of requires it. But I almost think we could get rid of this now she was the real deal and just sort of let's try this. We'll split it into two. And then we can move a bit of the dialogue down here and have it right near the bottom, and then we can see more of the art, and it isn't so awkward. And then we'll reshape the panels, obviously. Kind of need to really push Corinne's bubble right up into the corner there, just so the reading order is clear, so that it's going to go, top left, top right, and then whoosh down here at the bottom. We're not going to have a connecting tail between, say, these two bubbles, so we're just going to have them as two separate bubbles, because again we're trying to keep this page clean. So See, that tail is too small. That's a bit better. And then we'll go in. Fix this one up. And again, we have to keep the bubble within the confines of the page. Ideally, with at least a little bit of breathing room next to the borders, or at least that's my preference. And then, just to round things off, again the tail pointing up to the mouth. So you can see how that works much better. The only thing that I would change maybe is again, just pull, say, these bubble down a bit and don't have it butt into the line there, because that goes back to what we were talking about before with the tangent. Make sure there's a little bit of breathing room there. You can see how that is much better than the original way that we did this, where we had the bubble just blocking off a huge amount of the art. To do it this way frees up a lot of the art, uses a lot more of the sort of dead space, this blank area up here, the upper part of the door and the wall. It was just like dead space, and there's no need for the reader to see that. Whereas the actual character, obviously we want to see more of the actual characters who are talking. And ideally we can minimize the amount of the art that we've agonized over from getting obscured. So the moral of the story, I think, is that sometimes your first attempt at something might not necessarily be the best option, and you'll instinctively know when something is off or when it's a good time to start experimenting and looking for better ways of doing things. Now, with that said, we're going to move on to panel number 2, because I think that's about as good as we're going to get panel 1. Again, pulling up the text. Into the middle of the bubble, making sure that there's a little bit of breathing room. It does obscure the art on the top of Cohen's head a little bit more than I would like, but again, we have to consider, as well as what I was just talking about making the most of sort of the empty areas of the panel that aren't as important. The other thing we have to consider is the reading order. So first instinct might be to move this panel here, but reading order is important too, so we have to factor in for that as well. What did I just do? Blue tail. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is, because I'm not sure about that, and I'm really going back and forth about should I put it in the top left or put it up here in the centre, and it's going to depend on how Sadie's bubbles are going to work out. So we'll do Sadie's ones first, and then I'll decide on the position of Corinne's. Because these might be the most challenging bubbles on the whole page. I mean, you can see right there that's going to be a heck of a size. Okay, if we center those, and then stick that there, I think that's going to be best. Let's move this one down just a bit. I think I'll go in and change the line spacing like just a tad, just to make the most of the speech bubble. It's just kind of a backwards way of doing things, but we might do the same with this one because I don't know. It's a little bit cheaty to wind out the line spacing just to make your bubble look better. I don't know, it feels cheaty to me, but merge those two together. And again, that's a better execution than what I was initially going to do, where we were going to block off Corinne's head, and it works because you read top to bottom. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with that, I think. it's really challenging when you have a huge chunk of dialogue like that. Although I'm sure I did have that in mind when I was storyboarding this out, that it's like you're gonna use up a lot of space on this page, a lot of the real estate. There's that term again that I was using all day yesterday. A lot of the real estate on that panel I knew was going to be dialogue, I'm sure. In fact, I'm sure I knew this whole page was going to be a dialogue heavy one. I think that panel's a bit too... the bubble size is a bit too wide. There we go. That one might be a bit better. Give the text plenty of breathing room, but not too much. Actually, maybe that is too much. A lot of movement at the very top and the very bottom. This one is a bit tighter, but still gives the text a little bit of a buffer. All the way around. There's no danger of the text sort of hitting the edge of the bubble, if you see what I mean. And that works out a little bit better because we don't want to have the bubble be unnecessarily large to the point where it's blocking off a lot of the art. And we can see a bit more of Sadie's hand that way, and we can see she's sort of got both hands wide out, and we can see, look, I know this is crazy, is what she's saying. I know this is loopy. Popularizing loopy here, or at least I would be if anybody read this comic. I'm trying to popularize loopy. Again, I think we could make that bubble look a little bit better. I think we need to... I need to increase the size of that tail just because it's against the black background and so it's less visible. Ooh, I don't like that. So this is a really awkward bit of dialogue, just the way that it's... I think the best way to do it is just square it off like that. It's not great, but... the only other way I could do it is really just rewrite that whole bit of dialogue, but... let's just press on. Everything doesn't need to be perfect, you know? And as we've talked about, the ideal way to do it is you have the shortest lines at the top and the bottom, which obviously this is like the inverse of that, but okay. Now, again, trying to obscure less of the art. We'll make a connecting line here. I think that's the best way to do it. Okay, I'm just gonna do this. How am I gonna do this? I don't know. Awkward pause here while Clip Studio Paint does the auto save. Right. Go in. Shrink that a little bit. And then we'll erase the excess. Oops. Being careful here. That'll do. I don't know, that's kind of really thick connecting, like could we scale that down a bit? Or don't scale it down, but actually there we go. Just going to make sure that that's exactly how I want it. Yeah, I've got to stretch out. Been at this for a little while now. Then back to standard speech bubble. That's a bit fair amount of room there, but again it's a very small bubble, so we can do that. And then finally, we have our thought bubble, which is, we're not going to do it like that. We'll take a bit more time with it. Apply a little bit more craftsmanship, John. I think what we need to do is Oh, okay. I thought there was a stabilization option here that would help us get a less wiggly line, but it's a little bit too angular. We need to be a bit more rounded. So, you know, curve it out. Oh no, that's not going to do. See, that's more curvy, but yeah, we might need to do this a couple of times before we get it right. A little bit better. Doesn't really okay, we could work with that, I suppose. I mean, end up putting a little bit of white out around it, or just rasterize it and amend the proportions on it. But the last thing we'll do is oh, that's too many. No, too thick. Again, there's a bit of trial and error involved here, but you know, we're it's okay, we're almost at the end now. Almost at the finish line. No. I kind of feel like these stop balloon tails are a bit too I think I'll go in by hand and just wipe that out actually. I'll just add a couple of circles myself, because I'm not very happy with the Size of the balloon tells us sort of the thickness of them. Okay, try it one more time. I can't get the size relative to the... So if I make it too big, then you can see how there's not any white space in them anymore. I think what I'll do is a bit of transparency. That's not transparency, that's... Ooh, there's some sort of layer effect going on there where the lines are going through Corinne's face. I've got to go in and fix that too. Just do it one at a time like that. That's better. Maybe still not ideal though. But okay, we can work with that. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. I'll go in after the event and I'll rasterize the thought balloon bubble, and that's going to allow me to go in and refine that a bit, get maybe a slightly nicer shape than what I got just by going around it and doing the balloon pen. So anyway, so that is going to do it for this lettering session, I think, and hopefully that'll have given you some ideas about the kind of problems and the pitfalls that you can sometimes have if you're doing lettering and you have a lot of dialogue that you need to shoehorn into a small amount of space, and you're trying to do it in a way that you're creating as little obstruction to the art as possible. Sometimes it's actually convenient if you need to obscure a bit of art that you're not happy with, and you can lay a speech bubble over it. But yeah, less said about that the better. But yeah, different ways that you can work around these sort of common problems that you might have. Experiment with your bubble placement, see if you can reword dialogue, which helps if it's your dialogue. Obviously, if you're the one who wrote it, then you have a final say in any kind of rewrites. But somebody else's dialogue, you might want to clear it with them first. But from a perspective of someone who is handling every aspect of this process, sometimes it's easy for us to just go in and make some quick rewrites, and they can just find more concise ways of allowing the characters to talk, so that it's like I said yesterday, don't use 10 words if 7 words will do. Don't use 7 words if 5 will do, and don't use 5 words if 3 will do. Find the most expedient way to move the story forward. And there are other little tweaks that you can do, like I said, like tightening up the line spacing, and making the most of the space within the actual speech bubbles as well. But I think that's going to do it for today's stream. We've actually gone a little bit longer than usual, have? No, we haven't. A little over an hour, so only slightly longer than usual. That's okay. Right, next week I am going to try and be a bit more diligent about my streaming schedule in terms of actually doing my streams on time and just showing up more regularly. So I hope that you'll join me next week. I think we're going to go back to doing some more art streams, because I know I've got page 23 is in progress, but I think we can happily say now that page 21 and 22, at least, there's nothing else to do with these beyond, like I said, a couple of minor tweaks there, but they're more or less done. So I want to thank you for joining me. I know we only got to do 2 streams this week, and I hope that next week we'll get to do more. So I hope that you'll join me then for next week's editions of Club Corbie.